All right, how's it going, everyone? This is James here with JCar News. So today, what I'd like to talk about is the Porsche Cayman. And so, if you're not really familiar with the Porsche Cayman, basically what it is, it's just kind of the Porsche 911's baby brother in a way. It's always like a smaller model that Porsche have had that's a little less powerful and doesn't make as much, good figures as the 911 does. But it's still a good car and it's a good driver's car, and it's always been rear-wheel drive as well. So that's a plus point as well. But what I want to talk about in this video is how the Porsche Cayman's always been a little overshadowed by the 911, and Porsche kind of shoot themselves in the foot with this car because they could make a really good car here if they had a Cayman that was up to par with the performance stats of the 911. And in the past they've kind of had to nerf the Cayman a bit because they still want people to buy the 911. But I think this year in 2019, going into 2020, I think they're kind of going back on this policy because from what it looks like, the new Cayman is going to be a pretty serious contender with the base 911s and the 911 Carreras in terms of performance. So there's the two different 2019, 2020 models of the 718 platform that Porsche used for the Cayman and the Boxster. There's the 718 and the 718S. So the 718 regular produces 300 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty good for a car this size and at this price point of around 60, 65, $70,000, depending on what options you choose. But the 718S platform uses the 911 turbo, uses that same type of variable geometry turbocharger linked to the 2.5 liter Porsche engine. So that one produces 350 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque, which is an interesting figure because that puts it really close to where the 911s start with the regular Carrera, the base 911. So like I said before, the Cayman's always been a little bit of a shadow to the 911 because, Porsche still wants to move 911s. So if they make the Cayman basically a comparable car, then, it's kind of dissuading half the market to buying the Porsche 911, the base model Carrera, if you can get the same car, but the Cayman's a little lighter and it's rear wheel drive. So it's definitely a different driving experience to the 911. But so one thing that's interesting too with the Cayman coming out in 2020 is they're reviving the GT4 model, which came out last in 2016. So this new Cayman GT4, it has the 3.8 liter Porsche Flat 6 from the previous Cayman GT4, but now produces 400 horsepower, which is that's a pretty good amount of power for a car this size. And having a rear wheel drive car, 400 horsepower, and it drives like a Porsche with the manual gearbox coupled, you're really starting to look at a serious performance contender in terms of these German cars. So if we're looking at the current 911 and the current Porsche Cayman, I'm going to compare the GTS model and the Carrera 911 base model. So the Carrera 911 base, it has the flat six, it's got 370 horsepower. It does 0 to 60 in around 4.4 seconds with the manual. And with the automatic, you can get it down to around 4.2 or 4.1. So the Cayman GTS has 365 horsepower and it MSRPs for $80,700, and it does 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds with the manual, or around 4.2 to 4.1 with the auto. So the exact same figure as the 911 due to the slight loss of weight. So what I think is interesting here is, so the Carrera 911 base, it MSRPs for around 10,000 more than the Cayman GTS. And with a few options, Porsche like to really charge up the money with their options on their cars. So you're easily probably looking at $100,000 MSRP for a base 911 Carrera. So my point about the Cayman in this video is, why aren't people buying the Cayman? Because I mean, it's $10,000 less than the 911. It has pretty similar performance statistics. It's got 5 less horsepower, but it does the exact same 0 to 60 times in terms of performance. And you get that rear wheel drive, which is an interesting element to a Porsche because usually the 911s, you'll get the Carrera 4 or something like that. So I really, if I was in this position, I'd probably get the Cayman. I think a rear wheel drive car like that would be, a fantastic driver's car, and all the car magazines love the Cayman because of this fact. And as well, there's also a market for tuning, and I got this from the Cobb website. This is for the 718 models of Porsche. So this is a stage one tune, and you run this on 91 or 93 octane. But as you can see here, you do get a good amount of power increase from tunes like this. You can get it up to around 370 or 380 from a standard Cayman, which is a pretty respectable figure here. And the base Cayman with only 300 horsepower, obviously that's not too comparable to a 911, but once you bring this into the equation, if you're into modifying cars like this and tuning them, then you have a pretty serious contender here. So I guess the point of this video is to just kind of bring people towards the Cayman, because I've always thought it's a pretty good car, but I think Porsche, they really have to try to, nerf it a little bit, because they still want the 911 to sell. But I think if they just, brought it up to the performance scale of the 911, I think they could have not only a unique car from the 911, but also another, really serious contender. And, they offer two different things, but I think they could still coexist with each other. So thanks for watching the video, guys. Let me know what you think about the Cayman in the comments section. If you'd ever think about buying one, especially things like the Cayman GT4, I think those cars could definitely go up in value as time progresses, especially these ones coming out with close to 400 horsepower. So let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching the video, guys.